Welcome everybody to the Hard Truth podcast inside the football industry with me, Philip Ideson, and with Darragh MacAnthony, chairman and co-owner of English League One side Peterborough United. And let's go straight into the conversation, Darragh. So you are back in Florida finally. How was the last week of the trip?
Let me tell you, this will either be an unbelievable episode or it'll be a fucking bust. Because I've flown 20 hours for the last 24 hours to get home, and you've run a marathon, 25 miles. Congratulations. So
thank you.
Between you limping around on your floor over there, you know what I mean, and me being mentally fucking away with the fairies, this will be fun. I left Dubai yesterday morning at 9 o'clock Dubai time, 15 hours into New York. And then there was no flights because of COVID and whatever else. Yeah. The amount of flights going to Florida are like limited. So I would have had to wait till Tuesday. So being a spoiled brat, I actually spent 14 grand on a jet. So when I came out of JFK, I drove a mile in a taxi to a jet port, which then flew me to Orlando. But because of all the storms, we had to go to Charlotte to refuel, and then Charlotte to Orlando. So it was another 4 hours in the air. But I finally got home. My missus picked me up at a jet port last night at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then I had my first alcohol for 2 months. We basically got absolutely smashed. Kids said hello. They went to bed. And then obviously the wine was flowing because I hadn't seen my family for 68 days. So there was loads to catch up on. We had a few drinks. We had a great session, as you do. And it was, and then obviously I finally got to sleep at 1. And I was up, I think, at 9 o'clock this morning. My missus did the school run at 6:30, and I kind of woke me up at 9. And to be fair, I feel $1 million. I feel good. It's nice to be home.
We'll keep that while you can, until you crash.
Boom, boom, boom. I'm ready. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the Posh's magnificent victory on Saturday? Or
Well, we can go there first of all. If you like, it's interesting to see. It wasn't looking that magnificent at one stage, was it?
To be fair, no. I mean, I'm in Dubai. I'm watching it at like 6 in the evening Dubai time. I've got it set up in the cinema room in the villa I was staying in, and the first half I had no sound, so I'm just watching the big screen. And it was Ragars Rovers. I mean, my God, our goalkeeper, he was unbelievable in the first half. Fair play, because our defenders, who are normally phenomenal, and last year had loads of clean sheets. I mean, it looked like I said to the gaff after the game, were they all in Vegas on the piss all week? Because I'd never seen, and some experienced defenders. I mean, they were doing things like, teams sometimes play through you and attack you and open you up. And we were giving them the ball 10 yards outside our box. Mm-hmm. Like there would be a pass on, and like you could pass to me, but we were just passing straight to their attackers.
Just inviting them to run at you.
Yes. And Swindon are really good in the final third. They'll cut you open. And obviously they scored a goal on a breakaway, and then they probably had 4 one-on-ones the rest of the half where we gave them the ball. Their midfielders didn't put them in. It was us just passing it straight to them. And I'm kind of looking, I had a guy with me on business out there, and I said, what the fuck are we doing? This is going to be 4 or 5-0. I mean, at half time, I'm like thinking, Jesus Christ, like any danger, lads? When are you going to get going? Now, fair play to the gaff. He changed formations. I would imagine he ripped them all a load of new arseholes at half time. And it's that old adage, if you don't get on top when you're on top, if you don't do the business.
Yeah, take your chances.
And what we have in our team this year, which we haven't had for a few years, we've got that ability to come back. We did it against Fleetwood. To be fair, Sunderland scored in the 83rd minute, and then we probably had 4 absolute sitters to win the game at Sunderland late on. Mm-hmm. We look very strong physically late in games. So I would imagine there's going to be a time, hopefully not, where we're going to be a couple down and we will come back. Good old Posh style. But Clark Harris basically got in the game, then Bella got in the game, and we took our chances. And then Broom came off the bench, scored a great goal to kill the game off with 10 minutes to go. And it was a very comfortable second half, which was surprising. But fair play, Swindon are a good team. They've put together a really, really good squad for League One. And they have that momentum of coming up from League Two. You see it a lot with teams. Yeah. So they'll be in the shake-up, I'd imagine, if they don't lose any of their better players in January or whatever else. So, you would look at it and go, promotion rival, win. Fleetwood, promotion rival, win. Mm-hmm. Sunderland should have won against Sunderland quite comfortably. We're nowhere. I'd say we're in second gear at the moment. We're nowhere near third, fourth, or fifth. Somebody's going to get us into when we start hitting the gears. But for some of the players, it's going to take a bit of time. I've said this before. Unfortunately, in COVID, I guess you don't want to rely on the second half of the season, but we're built to be a very, very strong team in the second half based on fitness and physicality and whatever else. So good derby coming up against the Cobblers next weekend, our biggest rivals. Tomorrow we play Fulham in the EFL Cup, and we'll have quite a few of our youngsters playing, which will be good to see. Yeah. We've lost one of our best players. We've lost next weekend. He's gone to Ireland with the Irish camp and the under-21s. So Jack Taylor. So, but squad's a squad, and you have a squad for a reason. Happy days and early days yet, but yeah, it's taking shape.
Good. And, not that the league table means too much right now, but, you're still, for some of the grumbling that over the first couple of games, I mean, you're still only a couple of points away from
Listen,
the top, isn't it?
I won't even look at the league table till January. Never do. Not interested. I told you, we've won 7 in a row to start seasons. We've been top of the league. We've been flying. It's a load of bullshit. It really matters after January. So I couldn't care. People were saying, "Oh, you're only." I'm like, it makes no point. We could be top of the league, and I wouldn't be getting very excited. So I knew Hull would be there. I tipped them at the start of the season. Lincoln's a surprise package, but they're not a surprise because they're a big club with a good manager. It's a long way to go. Portsmouth fans losing their shit before Saturday's game. Look at them now. They comfortably won. There's a lot of good teams in League One. It's going to be topsy-turvy till Christmas. You won't really know who's in the top 10 shake-up till January, February onwards. And that's where squads start showing you as the pitches get heavier, players' legs get heavier. That's where you look at it and go, right, now's the time to go on that run and win a lot of games. You know what I mean? Who was it on Saturday said to me about, what was again, here's where I'm a little bit brain dead from all the travelling. But, again, was like saying, oh, such and such is on these points and they're flying and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really getting excited about any of that. Yeah. It's just way too early. And I always do this. It's funny. I go on Twitter after a game. I never go on during the game. And I said to the person with me, I'm going to go back 45 minutes and there'll be about 7 or 8 comments that'll be like, fire Fergie, you're finished as president, step down, you're a pile of shit. And I'm going to retweet those and make those people feel really fucking silly. I saw yesterday you retweeted. So I love playing that game. I just love it. It's like, fuel me. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And it's like, me and my missus were talking in the car on the way home last night because we were talking about the amount of people like tweeting that they wish Trump were dead and celebrities and famous people. And we were saying, what makes a person send a disgusting tweet like that, regardless whether or not you don't like the president, you do, or, I've never trolled anyone. I haven't just picked my phone and gone, I'm going to pick LeBron James today. Or I'm going to pick whoever. I'm going to go, you're an asshole or you're a shit. It doesn't cross my mind, Phil. And you don't appear to be that kind of character either. But there are people, and some friends of mine actually do it, who troll people. And I never quite understand what they get from it. It's like really, really fucking bizarre.
It feels like I don't know if it's a power thing or, that there's folks that they realize have achieved a lot of things that perhaps they're not on the track to achieve themselves, and it's their way to give them crap. I don't know. It's like a bully mentality, isn't it?
It is, and I hate fucking bullies, but it's also small mind mentality. And here's the truth, hard truth: 99% of people who troll and tweet shit and put messages up and whatever, they wouldn't have the bollocks, the testicles, the cojones to say it to your face. They would fucking melt. They'd fold like a cheap suit. If they were like in front of that person, they're like trolling. And that's where I'm that person that I say what I mean and mean what I say. And if I call you a cunt on air, I would do it in person. And I would have no problem doing it because that's who I am, character-wise. Do you know what I mean? But I certainly wouldn't be a meanie mouth motherfucker behind the scenes. Like I follow, is it Jason Blum who does Blumhouse horror movies? I love his horror movies. And I follow him on Twitter. And he tweeted something. He deleted it 10 minutes later. But it was again like, the best day ever. Like about Trump getting COVID.
Right.
And Dominic West, I think a British actor who's in The Wire, tweeted again along the lines of, he's got it, great news and whatever. And other people like he dies. And I'm just like, once I was going to tweet them and go, actually unfollowed them. I was going to tweet them and go, you sad motherfuckers, regardless, which all you're trying to do is virtue signal and be popular to your base. And it's pathetic, you sad cunts. It's pathetic. Whether I liked Obama, disliked Obama, if him and his wife had it, I'd feel terrible. I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to their health. And I think he was a useless president. But there's no way I would tweet stuff like that vilifying it about COVID. I mean, I'm just like, what the fuck?
I don't know what goes on in people's minds. It's like, we have our difference of opinions on Trump, but that doesn't mean that you want anything bad to happen to him as an individual, does it?
Are you and your wife sitting there cheering a glass of wine over Donald Trump and his wife getting COVID?
Right.
I would expect not. Regardless whether you dislike him and you support basically Biden. I just like, really? I mean,
you don't want anything bad. I mean, everyone at the end of the day, whether you agree with them or not, have family, they have friends, they're like, I don't know how you could wish ill on anybody.
100%. I mean, the man has children. He has a young son. Again, you've got to be, I don't know why people can't separate this stuff. You know, there are lots of people I dislike or I have no time for, but the idea that I would wish them ill will, or I would think, oh, I hope that person dies, or oh, they got what they deserved. I'm not built that way. And
Yeah.
you know, if you're listening to this and you're built that way, let me tell you right now, you're a small dick, sad motherfucker for thinking that way. And it's the wrong way to think. And no wonder you're a fucking loser in life, because only losers think that way.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm a fucking winner. Do you know what I mean? Because I've never been jealous of anyone. Now, I'll use a different word here. When I was growing up and I didn't have a lot of money, I was envious to see people have a nice car and a nice house. And envy is actually healthy. There's nothing wrong with being envious, because you can be, wow, great for them, they've done really well. I'm envious, but I'm not jealous.
And it fuels you. It fuels your motivation.
Right. Correct. I've met people who are jealous of me. You know, jealous of my wealth, jealous maybe I do football or I'm on TV. But it's okay to be envious and go, oh, I wouldn't mind having that, or I wouldn't mind. There's nothing wrong with wanting what other people have in a healthy way. But when you go down the jealous route, jealousy, I mean, it's vermin. It's a dirty, dirty word. And some of these people, the shit they're putting out there, what has 2020 come to, Phil? I mean, it's absolutely mental when you've got half of America, you know, wishing ill health on the leader of the free world. You know, it's just fucking madness. I mean, when Boris Johnson got ill, I said to my wife, you know, whether you're a Tory, whether you're Labour, you know, it's really concerning, a guy of his weight, you know, and he's on oxygen and, you know, he might not make it. He's just had a young baby, his wife. I wasn't thinking of politics. I was just thinking, God bless him, you know, that he's going through that right now when he's trying to run a country during COVID. It's just madness, in my opinion. But there you go. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, you know, social media enables it, doesn't it? Because everyone can be anonymous. So it goes back to you saying about you would never say something like that in real life. Well, it's because nobody needs to know who you are. So you're free to just fire over whatever you want.
I stand by the fact I said that if this was 10 years ago and there was no social media, we would not be locked down. Right. Nobody in the world would be locked down from COVID restrictions. You wouldn't have the lunacy of New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, you know, where they're still basically all frightened of their shadows over a virus that's going to be a virus. And without social, we would not be locked down. People would know about it. You would read about it on the news. You would know what's going on. But the fear mongering, the scaremongering, we as a society wouldn't be. My missus saw a show on Netflix. She keeps telling me to watch. You should watch it. It's about the birth of social media. And it interviews all the tech people who created this social media accounts. None of them are on social media. They won't let their kids on social media. It's about how social media follows people, stalks people, their digital footprint. It makes you think this way. It's the bots and everything else. And she's like, you got to watch this. It's mind blowing, and it's on Netflix. So, but again, I worry. You know, my kids are in social media, and I do. I worry every day about some of the shit that's on there and whatever else. You know, it's a scary time. Really, it really is. You know, when you're growing up. In our day, we didn't have it. We didn't have camera phones. We didn't, we weren't doing stuff that could be used against us 15 years later. It was a better way to live, in my opinion. And nowadays, you have to have balls of steel to be on social media and front it. And look, I get abused, trolled a lot. Yeah. It bounces off me, but it doesn't bounce off lots of people.
No, and unfortunately, your phones are listening to you. So actually, you need to be strong-minded to actually not get sunk into that, because you talk about something and you'll be sure that you go back into Twitter feed and the first ad that comes up will be something related to something you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be strong in opinion, right? And you got to have conviction. It's like I wrote a tweet today related to Ollie Watkins because of what he did to Liverpool. And obviously, my beloved, I got off that jet last night at the fuel stop, and I saw the score, and I nearly fucking fainted. And then I realised that who the goalkeeper was, and I'm like, well, that serves Liverpool right, because one thing Alisson's shown the last 20 months, he's been a bit injury prone.
Yeah.
And I know that's harsh to say that. He is the best goalie in the world. But if you're going to have a backup like Adrian, and you've seen some of the things he did last year, that's on Klopp and Liverpool for not recruiting.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble.
You're asking for trouble, and now Alisson's out the next 6 weeks. So, but I did see this post-lockdown, Liverpool's defence suddenly looked like one of the worst defences in the league with the goals they were conceding. And I said to you before about you climb the mountain sometimes to go back down and come back up again. We said this in the previous podcast, that winning mentality. Once you've climbed and conquered, it's very difficult to do it again. And Klopp's been doing it with the same squad for 3 years now, full on. And now he's brought in a couple of players this summer, probably a bit too late now. And I don't think it bodes well. I don't think we've got a cat and house chance of winning the league. I hope I'm wrong. But the hard truth for me is that what you saw last night was probably coming from Liverpool's perspective, where they were going to get beaten and they were going to get soundly beaten. And I'll tell you right now, Everton game's going to be a hell of a game, and on form, you'd say Liverpool have smashed them to pieces. And the other thing I'd be angry about: how did Mane and Thiago end up with COVID? Because again, like I was angry with my players,
Yeah.
you're losing 2, you're starting 11 to COVID when we're meant to be again talking about living in a bubble. Like what the fuck with the footballers? These are players on 100, 200 grand a week. Can you just stay home, until Christmas time? Can you just live in that bubble? Because losing you, that's a big loss. So, but fair play to Aston Villa. And the point I was making about Ollie Watkins was people moan about spending 28 million for a 23-year-old striker from the Championship or a 24-year-old striker from the Championship. And I was saying, United are going to spend the same money on signing a 33, 34-year-old veteran for one final payday. And I know where my money would be. Now, listen, the United signing, he could turn out to be, he's a world-class player. If he turns to the Premier League at 33, like Abramovich did years ago or whatever else, yeah, great, good. But I'm just not sold on it. And I just look at that EFL business, and Everton have bought Godfrey today from Norwich.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, 20 million. York ended up getting 2 million, non-league team York, which is phenomenal. I love that. And fair play to Everton, fair play to Norwich. That's how we want it to work. And I look at some of the deals going on. I'm thinking there's so many more talented footballers in the Championship, even in League One, that could play higher with a good club. And I don't know why more shopping is not done. I've seen like Brighton today spent 6 million on a Polish player that they put back out on loan. And I see some of the clubs and go, why don't you go? Like Liverpool, they sold Danny Ings. They've just got rid of Brewster to Sheffield United. I mean, again, 20 odd million on a player like Watkins as a youngster that could be his backup for Firmino or backup for their front three. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean compared to what they'd have to spend elsewhere. I think they ended up spending 48 million on Jota from Wolves, who's a good player. He was very good, but I would hazard a guess that Watkins will score a lot more goals this season. But would a Liverpool ever look at a Watkins from Brentford? No.
Is it a risk thing? Is it because supporters expect you to be signing? If it's just a show of ambition, if you're Liverpool and you sign a striker from Brentford versus going and signing somebody from even some unknown team in Poland.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, it's all about, look, if you're really worried about, and we spoke about this before, about what your fans think, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
But if you do your scouting, and if anyone did the scouting properly, and a lot of clubs didn't, Ollie Watkins was made for the Premier League. His power, his pace, his ability. He's made for the Premier League. He came from a great academy at Exeter. He's done his time at Brentford. Every club in the Premier League should want to be buying Ollie Watkins. And you look at Spurs, who were linked with him originally, and they're like, they got a striker from Portugal on loan and they've got to pay 50 million if he comes off. But again, having Ollie Watkins coming off the bench to play in for Harry Kane late in the game, I mean, it's not a risk. It's money in the bank, because all Watkins has to do is score 10, 12 goals and he's worth 50 million in the Premier League. So where's the risk? And again, I look at the Premier League and the money that's going abroad, and I'm banging my head against the brick wall saying it. There are so many talented players at the right age level that could step up in the Premier League and become superstars if given the chance.
Isn't the same with managers too? We've talked about managers in the Premier League 100%. As well. Always overseas managers getting the chance. And nobody's really making that jump up from the Championship or League One that's British.
100%. Bar your Sean Dyche and a couple of others, and Eddie Howe did really well. There are very few. It's mainly foreign managers that go up. And look, when you look at what Bielsa's doing, and what did I say about Bielsa? What did I say at the start of the season in the podcast? Bielsa could manage. He could manage Chelsea. If I'm Chelsea or Man United, and those two managers are on a sticky wicket with results, Lampard and obviously Solskjaer, Bielsa, for me, I'd be writing Leeds a check for 20 million to get that guy. Because what he's done to transform. I watched the Man City Leeds game the other night. It was like sex. It was one of the best games of football I've seen. Don't know if you saw it. It was just end to end. And it was the way football should be played. Fair play to both managers.
Which is actually amazing, given that most teams that get promoted will set up defensively. And what I've seen from them so far is just continues to go for it.
Fearless. He has set his team up fearlessly. Whatever he does with his players, he's made them fearless. They couldn't give a shit if they're playing Real Madrid. I love the arrogance. I love the backup, the way they play. Man City went one up. Usually they'd run all over teams. What do Leeds do? Straight back down the other end. And not only that, they should have won the game. They had chances galore laid on. And I'm just in awe of what that guy has done. I mean, you look at his record, and he was good early on. He didn't do great things in Spain or France, but what he's done at Leeds, I mean, wowee. Well, look, your point there. There are some great managers, in the Championship. There's some good managers in League One. They're never going to get a chance in the Premier League. I think Paul Ince was the last one who got one with Blackburn like 15 years ago or 12 years ago. But in the Championship, I mean, I think the Barnsley manager's got the Red Bulls job in New York. I think he's hired as like a manager in the MLS today, so fair play. But there are some really, really good managers, and the Premier League, look, Crystal Palace, we've got Hodgson. I don't know how much longer he'll go on. It'd be interesting to see who they get next.
Yeah.
And I guess Brighton's the last club who took a punt on Potter,
Mm-hmm.
who came from
Swansea, wasn't he?
And fair play. If you look at the way Swansea or Brighton play, the football's delicious. I know the results haven't been good, the last couple of results, but Brighton are, for me, going to finish top 12.
So you talked about Solskjaer earlier. So if you're Man United chairman, what are you doing with Ole Solskjaer?
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. Listen, lockdown saved them. They came out of lockdown. They did brilliant. They finished third. But as a manager, for me, Man United managing one of the biggest clubs in the world, no way. Not for me. No disrespect. He's out of his depth. And I think what's probably appealing is he's not going to scream and shout when they don't land the transfer signings. And I think I've always been a Mourinho fan, and I know the press hate him. There are a few of my pals in the press who despise Mourinho. But Mourinho's shown what a job he did now at United when he won trophies and he came second. And people wanted to laugh at him leaving. Look at the way he's got Spurs playing. I tipped on this podcast Spurs at the dark horses, did I not?
Yeah.
Right. If you take that penalty away last week, the stupid handball in the 95th minute, and they're sitting second or third. I'm telling you now, he's going to get them in the top four, Mourinho.
If it wasn't for Liverpool, we'd be talking all about Spurs.
Phenomenal.
Right, I mean, it was an amazing performance.
Phenomenal. But not surprising. Spurs have got a really good squad. And Jose Mourinho is still one of the best managers in the world.
I'm sure that he took some great pleasure in going to Old Trafford like that.
What Jose will do this season will deliver a trophy to Spurs for the first time in years. And he will get them top four. And he will re-establish himself. And probably at the same time, Guardiola, if Man City don't win the league, Guardiola will be leaving England. Mourinho will be on the way up again.
Yeah.
And that's classic Jose Mourinho when everyone's writing him off. So don't be shocked by that. Whether you hate him, dislike him, and there are people in the press who absolutely despise him, he is a world-class manager. So let me tell you, the Premier League is going to be blockbuster this season because you've got Everton are back at it. Arsenal are on their way back. Spurs are going to be involved. Leicester look good again. You've now got, obviously, Aston Villa are unbeaten start of the season. Brilliant Dean Smith, lower league manager.
Yeah.
We've played against him at Walsall when he was manager, so that's brilliant, you know. It's that league is going to be so unpredictable to choose who's going to win it and who's going to be in the Champions League and who's going to be relegated. So it's going to be one of the best seasons ever, and the biggest tragedy is no fans to see it at the moment.
Isn't that the case? Because that's what we've been wanting for so long is some competition.
Oh my God.
Now, I just want to ask one question about Solskjaer. Well, it's not really about him, but it's about, the crazy results we saw this weekend. And as a chairman, I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of some hammerings in your time. How do you stop yourself from making a knee-jerk reaction?
Well, if I'm Man United, I'm looking at we've lost our 2 home games so far, which is outrageous. Yeah. I'm looking at, yes, they came back later than everyone else because of the end of last season. And I'm looking at the players basically giving up and losing 6-1 to Spurs against an old manager. I'm looking at, they were very lucky against Brighton. Brighton hit the post 5 times. United could be stood with like 3 losses on the record.
Yeah, they could be bottom of the table.
That's what I mean. So for me, time's up for him. Now, if he comes back from it, great, good for him. But I think he's out of his depth there. And I think what you'll see is a Pochettino will end up probably at Man United. If they lose 2 of the next 4 or 5 games, the pressure will tell. And then you're probably going to see something's going to happen.
Yeah. Now I want to go from the top to the bottom and talk a little bit about Bury AFC.
Yeah, cool.
So they started with a win in their first game against Steaton, which is actually like the local village to where I'm from. It was in the Northwest Counties League First Division North. I had to write that down to make sure I got it right, which I think is level 10 in the pyramid. I just wanted to know
where are they playing? Where are Bury playing?
So I actually don't know. I mean, it's not Gig Lane, but I'm not sure.
No, they're not. I think the former Bury owner still has his mitts around Gig Lane, so I don't know what's going on there. I think what a romantic story. I would definitely be like AFC Wimbledon a few years ago, and I always used to look out for the results. I read the non-league paper today, so I'm going to keep an eye out for Bury's results because the romantics in us want teams like that to come back through the leagues. And hopefully they'll do it like Hereford have tried and Darlington have tried and teams that have had to re-up again. Do you know what I mean?
Any advice, if you were starting a new club it's basically from scratch, I mean, what would you do in the first 6 months to get things started?
Well, what I'd do is I would lean on the community spirit that's there. I would look for sponsors in the community that were actually sponsoring Bury, the main club, and say, look, we need your help. AFC Wimbledon did it really well. They went out and got some hardcore fans with money. And they had it was owned by the fans, but there were 5 or 6 patrons who put up some serious money in the first few years to help them get the stadium they bought. to help them, have a training ground, to help them bring in better players to that level, knowing that it was a long-term project. And you had people who probably put in 100 grand each a year. For them, there were rich people that didn't mean anything.
Yep.
And those patrons helped get them back to the league. So if I were the owners of that Bury, or it was the fans, I would try and find sponsors and business people, because it's a great story and it's good publicity as well. And I'm sure, I don't know, if they haven't got a training ground, they're going to need to get a training ground. They're going to need to have somewhere to play. And they will get so much support behind them because the other Bury's not playing and they're still not back.
Yep.
So I would imagine a couple of back-to-back promotions and they're off and running. And then it becomes a romantic Hollywood story.
Right.
You know what I mean? And look, for a team like that, it's great to see. And I hope they do really well.
Yeah, I'm delighted to see them just playing again.
Absolutely.
With everything that's gone on and continues to go on there.
Big time.
I want to just follow up now on some of the topics that we talked about last week. And, I may be asking these questions and you tell me there's no change, but I want to see if there's been any updates. Mm-hmm. First of all, on the testing for COVID, last week we talked about there wasn't really that much clarity of when you call off a game and when you keep on going.
Is that why you didn't play this weekend?
Mm-hmm. So our game Grimsby was called off because the Grimsby chairman decided that they weren't going to play.
And the Football League still allowed that?
Yeah.
Load of bollocks.
But the Football League is investigating. But
that's a forfeit, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they allowed it to go on. And I think there was Oxford and Crewe at the weekend as well that was called off at the last minute because now I'm going to get this the wrong way around. I think it was Crewe were travelling to Oxford, but whichever one team showed up, they had one positive case that morning and they called the whole game off.
Okay. Is that the rules that they're meant to call the game off?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not sure if there are any rules, and I think that's part of the problem.
I know the NFL are like going OTT over here with it all. And I think now, the WHO came out last week and said 1 billion people have had COVID. So, and if 1 billion people have had COVID, the real mortality rate is 0.15%, which makes it just about as dangerous as the flu, if that's correct from the WHO. So, and again, we don't do this during the flu season. And we know this is a contagious disease, but we also know now that we're so far down the line. Can we continue to operate businesses and sports based on one person getting COVID and just keep completely shutting it down? I mean, I saw there was a school, one kid got it and 200 kids were sent home for 3 weeks. Is that a realistic way to operate and live life? Because I'm not sure that's what we should be doing. So if a Crewe player got it, I was under the impression, we were told, and I don't want to misquote here, that as long as there's no other symptomatic players and people aren't symptomatic and you've done temperature checks and everyone's feeling okay, the show goes on. So I'm not sure why the game was called off. And I'm not sure the right thing to do is keep calling off games every time a player comes down with it. Okay, so we want to go test everyone again. But again, with the testing, we had it here, I think, in the NFL. It was Tennessee. They tested like 5 players. And then by the end of the week, it ended up 20 players, but some took 5 days to get it through. But, and again, as long as these sports people, I don't know, do we bring a rule in that says, look, if you get a tested case, there has to be a 20-day lockdown of you still play games, but you don't go home. You don't see your grandparents. You don't see your parents.
You got to go into a forced bubble.
You got to go into like a bubble where you're going to play a game. There's no symptoms of any of the players. If you feel as a club you want to go and test, you go and test and take the expense on or whatever else. Or maybe the government needs to start writing checks for that. Who knows? But there's got to be a way that we can still motor on and continue because our industry is already at death's door because of the government. Yeah. So now the idea that we're postponing games because one player gets COVID when you've got a 20-man squad or a 24-man squad, and for Grimsby to call 3 games off when it was one player, a youth player who hadn't been around it. Again, none of this makes any sense. And this is where we're also fucking irritated with governments in the world where the rules keep changing all the time.
Yeah, I don't think we just need to know, there has to be protocol, and I'm sure there's protocols, but now it seems really subjective. And so do you decide because I've got an injury crisis and I haven't won this season, that maybe I'll report that I have some symptomatic players that haven't tested, or
I'm sorry, but games cannot be called off unless there's a rule in place. If 3 people test COVID, or if you have an actual positive and you think, and it's a genuine case, and the EFL should be the ones making that call. No club should make the call. The EFL should disperse and send somebody on site straight away and make that call. And if the EFL want to, I don't know, let's say on Friday, Bradford's player gets it, and the EFL want to go and pay for emergency testing, so that by Saturday morning, you get all the... And now
one way or the other.
Yeah, they've got these 15-minute testing things now. Maybe the EFL need to be investing in these units that you can now buy in England. And the EFL should have one at every club. Every club out of the 72 should have a 15-minute test. So if that happened again, you would have crew in Oxford show up in a tent outside, take the 15-minute test, and you find out, okay, we got 1 or we got 2, you go home, the game goes on. Yeah. But we have to get on with things. We can't just keep fucking shutting everything down and postponing games last second. It's not realistic.
So the next thing we touched on last week was the fans back. Now, are we just in a holding pattern at this point?
I'll tell you where we are.
Happening on it?
I'll tell you where we are. We're being cut adrift. The government's writing $1.5 billion for the arts. What was the theatre group that are selling tickets for 3,000 people now inside? What's the theatre called?
Royal Albert Hall.
So the Royal Albert Hall now, 3,000 people can go inside. The cinema can host football games where you can have like 500 people.
And Boris Johnson's there telling everyone they need to go out to the cinema.
Well, he's giving me the royal hump. His sports director and deputy's giving me the fucking royal hump. What are they doing to our industry? And I don't want to hear anymore, well, the Premier League can deal with that problem. Now, fuck you. You stopped us doing what we've got to do. You're stopping us operating as a business. That doesn't sway with us anymore. You're bailing out rugby. You're bailing out other sports. You're giving £1 billion to the arts. And you're fucking one of the biggest industries in the UK. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What is the sports minister doing? There's no guidance whatsoever. You're talking about your 6 months fucking nonsense. Of fans might be that when everyone in the world's going to have a vaccine probably by January, and he's talking 6 months. What kind of leadership is that? And I was a Johnson fan, and now I'm just looking at it going, why are you letting our industry die? And why are you trying to pass the buck to the Premier League? Yeah, we want a Premier League bailout, but that's a bailout, and we'll get to that in a second, where we're going to pay it back. Because I've seen all the comments from Sean Dyche, Steve Parish did an article the other day, and I'm a Steve Parish fan, but he was like, why should we help, smaller businesses or competitors and whatever else? I'm sick of reading articles like that, but that's a Premier League bailout we will pay back. The fucking government should be doing their own one for us. We should have 2. Because right now, they're absolutely strangling the life out of us. They're strangling the life out of every Football League club. What are they waiting for? Are they waiting for 10 clubs in a row to file administration? Are they waiting for a load of clubs to just cut a load of staff? Furlough ends this month. And I've said this before. We'll be having a conversation with our employees and our players, because if we're not getting any help, we're going to have to get help from them. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. And loads of clubs are going to get rid of employees in November and December. I guarantee you, and I shit you not, there are going to be cuts. There are going to be great people who are on 20, 30 grand a year losing their jobs. They're going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their livelihoods because the fucking government doesn't want to stand up and help. They want to stand up and say, we might do something, or the Premier League might do this. In the meantime, they're letting the theatre fucking open with 3,000 people inside in a closed auditorium. Give me a fucking break. You're allowing 500 people go and watch a football match at the cinema. Give me a fucking break. Right. I mean, why? What planet are these clowns on? And it's getting to the point now where we as people who live in these countries have got to go, why are we allowing this draconian shit and nonsense to carry on? I mean, tell me again how busy the NHS is and how filled it is with COVID patients. I mean, seriously, what are we doing now? As like citizens and everything else, why are we allowing this to happen? Why are we allowing governments basically run us out of town and put us out of business? And why on earth does it appear the UK government have a vendetta against the football industry? Though one of probably the biggest industry, you know what I mean, for like cities and towns and villages and what
the amount of tourism that brings in, I mean, it's such a great export.
Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm racking my brains. I did a PCR test to fly to Dubai. The guy I was with was flying back to the UK. He had to do a PCR test to fly back to the UK. And then he has to quarantine for 14 days. I flew to New York. There was no quarantine. Once I thought I was going to Florida and there was no PCR test. I mean, our industry, the travel industry, how many more industries do they want to fucking destroy? What's going to be left at the end of all of this? So as for leadership and as for all the shit out there and whatever else, go fuck yourselves. Because right now, it's an absolute national disgrace what's going on. And I tell you what, we need to, as a collective, I don't know what we need to do, but we need to be aggressive. We need to be vocal. We need all our local journalists to stand up and put pressure on. We can't allow this any longer.
Well, it has to be a collective effort, doesn't it? We can't be doing it all individually, which is what it feels like we've been doing so far.
3,000 people are going to be sitting in a closed auditorium watching Mary fucking Poppins. And I can't have 3,000 people at Peterborough United watching a game on Saturday in the open air, where we're going to be providing every known safety thing in sight. Where is the logic in this? You tell me, Philip.
In a venue that you're only going to be 20% full.
It's insane. So many people have gone fucking insane this year. Honest to God, I keep saying it to you, and you were one of them COVIDies, do you know what I mean? Who went insane, do you know what I mean? Whatever. You're going to look back at this in the years to come and go, what were we doing? What were we doing with our kids sat at home for 3 months? Like, what were we doing? You're going to look back and go, shit, I should never have believed the press. I should have just studied the data, because the data is what matters. And the data in the UK, God bless the 8-9 people who died, but I believe 7 of them were over the age of 81. One of them was over 68. What are we doing to 99% of the population who are trying to work, earn a living, go about their lives as best they can, wearing a fucking mask?
So, any news on any bailouts or loans or anything from last week? Or is it just crickets again?
Listen, if there was news, do you think I'd be fucking saying what I just said? As far as I'm concerned, nothing.
Right.
I've heard nothing. Every day we're told another meeting's happening. Everyone, I mean, look, it's clear in the Premier League they want to try and do something. I think there's a bit of reluctance from a couple of people in the Premier League. I know who they are, but I'm not going to mention that in my air. But it would be your usual suspects who like a dollar. And what drives me mad is they're going on about, well, you got the Championship's got 10 billionaire owners and this and that. But okay, that's fine. But what about League One and League Two?
And that's okay for those 10 owners.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, for those 10 clubs.
And you know what? If I was, and I'll be God's honest truth right now, Phil. If I was worth £2-3 billion right now, as God is my witness, first thing I'd do, I would put up the 250 million loan. Mm-hmm. I would do it off the TV deal and say, I'm going to give you the 250 million and you're going to pay me back over 10 years, 15 years, and you're going to give me a small bit of interest so it looks like a business transaction. I would help. The second thing I would do, I would turn down any help for Peterborough United. Because if I'm funding my club and I'm a multi-billionaire, that's what I would do. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not calling out the billionaire owners in the champ. I'm just saying that, you know what? There's 75% of us down here who do need some serious help, and we're doing our best. And the help we're asking for, we're going to pay back. So while the Premier League want to fight about how many rich billionaires there are in the champ, let's not forget about the neighbours in League One and League Two.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are close to the door. And that's where I stand on that. And I don't know what's taking so long, but our leaders at the EFL need to get in a room with the Premier League, need to get in the room with Boris Johnson and the sports minister, whatever the fuck they are, and go, you're not leaving until you come up with a solution.
Yeah.
You're not leaving. That sports minister, you're not leaving until you and that prime minister allow our fans back in. You're not leaving. You've just let the theatre have it. We want 4,000 fans back in the lower leagues. Premier League, we want our 250 million. And you're not leaving until you tell us how we can do it. And by the way, stop saying it's a handout, because it's not. We're going to pay it back. We're going to pay it back with interest. So let's get a deal done. So I don't know what's taking so long. I'm happy to fly over from Florida. They're going to have to put me on a jet to fly over. I'll do it in a day, and I'll sit in a room with both parties, and I won't leave the room until there's a fucking deal done, because there needs to be a deal done. So I tell you right now, there's going to be clubs, loads of employees are going to be on the street in the next 3-4 months.
Yeah, it goes back to that collective responsibility, like everyone coming together and
I'm angry. I'm so angry. I'm angry.
Because and I can't remember the club, so I'm not just going to guess at who it was, but I heard something, or I listened to something the other day where somebody was saying, well, are we going to give, this was in the Premier League, are we going to give any money? Well, we got to make sure that we're okay first, and maybe if there's a little bit left over.
And I listen, I get it, Phil. You got kids, and charity starts at home. You got to look after your own house. I understand. I haven't got a problem with that, but we're not asking for any of your money this year. Your money that's in your pot this year. Yeah. We're asking for money from year 3, 4, 5, 6 of the TV deal. It's actually not affecting you as clubs. Mm-hmm. If we do it right, we can factor down the line the money, so the Prem actually won't get hurt, and it will be a great PR thing for football. But we need the government as well. And with the Prem one, we're going to pay it back. So again, we're not asking for something we won't pay back. Now, if the EFL are doing that and they're trying to take money without saying there's a structure to paying it back, well, then they're fucking stupid. But a deal needs to be brokered. So enough about it's all about me. I put a thing out last week saying we're not going to charge non-league clubs for loans. And I was hoping that initiative would be taken up by loads of football league clubs. Yep. I don't know if it has, but I've told our club we are not charging. And we've got players on 400 or 500 quid a week that we would get from a non-league club for the player to go and play. We're not going to charge. We're going to send the players out. We're going to do the right thing, because for me, those people down there, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So let's kind of move topics, and it kind of sounds difficult talking about this when we're talking about the lack of money in football, and then here we are, transfer deadline day, which is I think this year it's more for the Premier League clubs and all their international signings than it is for us in League One and League Two, with our deadline being, I think, another week, maybe 10 days away.
16th.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I looked at it today. I forgot it was deadline day today when I woke up. And there's nothing happening on our side, but there's such a little business being done. It's like a loan city. And even if you see some of the big deals being done in the Premier League, there's a lot of buy to loan, loan to buy. Players coming in now and then they'll pay next year. So what people are doing is kicking the can down the road. We've actually done a couple of deals this summer where we've bought a player, but we're not paying for them until next summer.
Right.
So that's a pandemic thing with the club doing the deal knows they mightn't get the same value next year.
Yeah,
but at least
cash flow.
It's booked in the books for next year.
Yeah. So, as I'm seeing transfer deadline day, I thought I have a few questions related to what a transfer deadline day actually looks like on the inside.
Yep.
And I'm thinking more of a traditional transfer deadline day, but then that kind of asks the first question: is there such a thing as a traditional transfer deadline day, or is every deadline day different?
They're all pretty similar in a way. I've done a lot of business last minute and deadline day, some serious Januaries. Usually deadline day, I'm in England and I've been on Sky or I've been on BT, I've been in the transfer show, but I've known what's gone on. That we've had a deal, we've done a couple of last minute deals. We've sold a couple of players last minute as well. We sold Ryan Bennett to Norwich for $3 million with like 10 minutes to go in the window, January once. We sold Lee Tomlin to Middlesbrough last day of the window. And that was where the week leading up to the day, we knew there was interest, but the deals didn't actually come into place until the day. We then had to sign replacements. We've had players sat at petrol stations in between locations waiting to come to us for medicals. And when they got permission, of course, you've done it off the books behind backs. Like, we're going to try and get a deal done today. Have your bag packed, get ready to rock and roll. And there is that element of you've then got to get all the paperwork lodged in. You've got, I think, till 1 o'clock. You put a deal sheet in before that, and then you get an extension till 1 o'clock to fulfill it, get all the contracts signed and the terms signed, and player pass a medical, do all the media stuff. So I've been part of it where it's been frenetically crazy, and I've been part of it where it's been crickets. And I know Baz will go to the club most deadline days. He'll have the TV on. The press officer will be there, and they'll be eating KFC. And at any time, the phone could ring. Things could go hectic and crazy. But usually you get a bit of an idea the days leading up that you think something's going to happen here. And then, it will come to fruition or it won't. But it's a crazy part of the business. I personally used to love it. With Sky, watching it until like 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, and Jim White.
The adrenaline thing with it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And there's nothing better than doing a deal on deadline day, and there's nothing better than selling a deal on deadline day. But the transfer window for lower leagues has been horrendous this summer. I mean, if you look at most of the deals, it's loans. What was the biggest sale in League One outside of what I did with Ivan Toney? You tell me.
I'm coming kind of up blank. I don't know.
I would imagine that the Tony deal I did is probably in the top 5 deals done in the whole of the football league.
So it's interesting to hear that, it's not necessarily that you're going into transfer deadline day and you've been working on a deal for the week or a couple of weeks and it's been simmering and, the deadline presents are we going to do it or are we not? It kind of forces a decision. But you do get times when someone just picks the phone up. You're not expecting anything out of the blue, and a couple of hours later, you're bringing someone in, or you're letting them.
Yeah, I basically been negotiating with other clubs about players, and it's like you think it's dead, and then you call their bluff, and then suddenly an hour to go, you get an email comes through and goes, "Okay, we'll do it," or if you can move this around or whatever. And sometimes I've gone back. There was one, I think Jack Baldwin, I bought off Hartlepool, and we were giving them $500,000, and they wanted most of the money up front. And I couldn't do it, and we were spreading it over time. And then I left it was dead. Then about 2 hours to go, I thought I'd give it one last go, and I went back to the Hartlepool person. I said, "Look, if in the event we get promoted, we'll bring the money forward quicker. There's a compromise." And they were straight away back on, "Okay, we'll do the deal." So it was like straight on to Barry. Baz, get onto the agent, get the player at a gas station, get down to the training ground. Liz, football, admin, you got to get all the contracts ready. And it just suddenly it starts moving. There's been times where, like, I did the George Boyd one years ago at the Forest, and last minute their owner sent him for an eye test and pulled the deal because he didn't want to sign him in the end. So he failed him at the opticians. And I was like, we'd done the deal, and it was like, horrible. So I've got so many stories from deadline day, like you wouldn't believe it. It would make your head spin. Years ago, we had Lee Tomlin. Celtic came in on Scottish deadline day, and I was like, during a game we were playing, and he wanted to go. And he wrecked the manager's office when we wouldn't let him go. And I said to him, "Lee, how are you going to do a medical anyway?" And he said to me, "Well, don't worry, I've got one booked down the road from Peterborough Hospital. It's all been arranged." And this is before we'd even spoken to the club. Yeah. That's football. I have no problem with that. That's what goes on. If you want a player, you pay the price and you make it happen. So there was a player we have this summer, and there was 2 clubs wanted to buy him, and I've made it very clear to the player he's not going. So no matter what, and Barry's under instructions, don't even ring me if they ring up today. So we're not going to sell him till the end of the season.
We'll have to do a pod just on crazy transfer deadline day stories.
It'll be good. It'll be interesting one.
Now, Is transfer deadline as big of a thing in League One and League Two now because you can basically sign free agents whenever you want, and that being most of the business that's going on these
It's
days?
it's different this year because there's the extension to the 16th, so you can still bring loan players in. I think from the Prem and the Champ and vice versa, they can buy. I think also a lot of people are waiting until the window closes. So you have all these unemployed footballers. I think the last count was 850 of them. Who would have been wanting 2, 3, 4 grand a week in July and August, and you probably get them for 700-800 quid a week in October
Yeah.
when the window closes. So there are going to be some discounts. What you got to bear in mind with those players that you bring in after the window closes in October is it's going to take them 6 weeks to get fit. So, but you're going to get them a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And I don't know, are we gonna do any more business? I would imagine no. So, I don't think so. I think we've got a pretty big squad. There were players we have that we didn't get rid of during the deadline. Do you know what I mean? They're still going to be with us. So, and we've tried to do deals with those players, but they, my thing to them was, if we do a deal with you now and you go free, it means you can sign for any club in October, November, December. If you hang around Peterborough just to collect your wages, you're not going to be able to go out and play. You're not in our squad. You're not going to be able to go and play. So it's kind of like irritated me that they wouldn't come to a deal.
Well, for their perspective, they're looking at it thinking that I don't want to add to the 800 or 1,000 or whatever it is unemployed footballers, and that you've always got a better chance to be employed if you're employed by somebody else.
I understand that, and it's like I'm on X amount, but there's a pandemic, and you might want to go and try and play. And both those players would go and get other clubs. They would definitely be at the top of the list for like free signings. But now they're going to be in no man's land till January. They're going to have 3 months. They might pick up their wages, and they were going to get paid anyway. When we let them leave, we were going to give them money over time. It would help us with our budget. They would still get paid, and they would still go and get other clubs. So for me, it was really short-sighted of those players not to take a deal.
Now, we talked a few times before about a lot of free agents not necessarily being real with what their demands are. Are you seeing that changing now as we thought it would do, or are we not there yet?
Oh, yes. We were looking at potentially another goalkeeper, and that might happen further down. And there was goalies that were asking for like $2,000 a week. And it was like, no, if we're going to bring one in, it'll be on like 500-600 quid a week, with the opportunity to earn more. Do you know what I mean? Just to give us the proper support and backup. We've got a very, very good number one, but you've seen what happened with Allison. You want to make sure you're covering all bases. Do you know what I mean? So, and there's, I haven't spoken to many other players, but there have been players every day sent by agents, and I've noticed the salary demands have now dropped. The signing on fees no more, the relocation no more. The agents are saying we'll take 2% instead of 5%. So of course it's desperation. You can smell it in the water. So they should have been a little bit more proactive in June and July, and they should have seen what was coming. We were warning them then; they weren't fucking listening. So now they're probably going to get less than what they were offered back then.
Well, we'll see if that unlocks at least some of the movement.
Baby. Hard truth. Pandemic. The world we're living in.
Well, I have some listener Q&A.
Cool.
I'm going to take a little break here, and then we'll come back with some questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Sounds good to me, my boy.
Right. Thanks, Darragh. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Podcast. We have just a couple of Q&As that I want to ask you today, Darragh, that came in over the last week or two. Just a reminder for anybody who's listening as well. If you do have questions, you can easily just submit them. I pick them up off any tweets, or you can DM us, or go to the website.
Listen, people, the podcast is fine. It's doing well. It's growing, but we need more help. I don't make any money out of this. Phil, God bless him, is doing it probably with the hope of making a few quid eventually from sponsors. But we need you to share, retweet, comment, give us 5 stars on all the podcasts. If you haven't done it already, do your bit. If you enjoy listening, you want to keep listening, and I hear lots of people do listen, and journalists listen, they want to pick up stuff. Do your bit, retweet, share, and spread the word for us. Now, I'm going to answer 2 quick questions without even knowing what they are. So here's my answer to the 2 most common questions I get asked. 1, yes, I'm married. 2, 9 inches on a cold day. All right, they're the 2 famous answers to 2 most asked questions.
So play Jeopardy now. We'll do it the other way around. You give the answers, and I'll come with the. So the first question that we have is from Michael Fritchley, who's a Swindon fan. Sure. Michael asked, "Who?" And let's see if you can actually name names. Who is the biggest name that you've walked away from a deal with because of an agent?
James McLean.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he went to Sunderland, we had him in our office, contract ready to be done. Terms were agreed with the player. We were paying 150 grand for him. His agent wanted 10 or 15%. We only paid 5, and I walked from the deal. And obviously he went to Sunderland and he got sold for 5-6 million, whatever. So his pathway worked for him.
Yeah.
But that was probably one of the biggest deals. I've been close on a few other. We had Jamie Vardy at my manager's restaurant. We were one of 3 clubs that agreed £1 million with Fleetwood. It was us, there was Leicester, and there was Cardiff, I want to say at the time. He came down, he spent an hour with a gaffer. Fair play to Jamie Vardy, he put it in his book. He actually drove to listen to what we had to say, even with Leicester coming in for him, because of our reputation with non-league players. But we weren't in the running. It didn't go well as Pearson, the job he did at Leicester on him, and he signed for Leicester, and the rest is history. What a signing!
Yeah, absolutely. So for the agent fees, so you're paying agent fees on top of anything that you'll pay the club. So you pay a club $1 million, and then you got to pay another 100 grand or whatever that number is to the agent.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but like, you know, you pay a transfer fee of £1 million. You then have 20% VAT, and then you have 5% that goes to the EFL. It's like a tariff that you pay. So the transfer actually is £1 million. It's £1,050,000 plus another 200 grand VAT, and you can obviously get the VAT back against VAT payments and whatever. But so it's quite hefty. And even if you don't make a payment on the player, say the $1 million, you don't start paying till next year. You still have to pay the 5% tariff, and you got to pay the 20% VAT. So you do have to come up with 250 grand
straight away.
Then the player will want a signing on fee. He'll want relocation.
Yeah.
And the agent will always he'll ask for 10, 15%. And we don't like paying more than 5%, which is the norm, is what you're meant to pay. And the real truth is the player should be paying the agent's fee.
Right.
But 99% of clubs do it.
Yeah, that's kind of where my surprise came in, because you'd anticipate that they're being employed by the player, so it should be the player that's compensating them.
Correct.
All
Madness.
right. Next question is from Jamie Williams. Jamie is a Hull City fan. Jamie wanted to know your thoughts on the current situation at Hull with regards to the owners and the fan relationship. You know, and what would you do if you were in the Alum situation?
Well, I said it before. I met the older Alum years ago when he was obviously in charge himself, and I had lunch at Hull, so we played them. And I found him a lovely guy. I found him really good company, and I found he was very passionate about Hull. He knew Barry Fry as his business. He travelled to Peterborough for his business years before he met Baz. I know the son now pretty much runs it. And I know obviously the older Alan wants out and he wants to sell it. Whatever reason, I don't know the ins and outs. But as a club, if you had plenty of money and you're looking to buy 2 clubs, 2 clubs outside the Premier League, you would have to say Hull and Sunderland are probably 2 of the best deals there. I know the figures for both clubs. And those on paper would be 2 of the best deals. So I'm a little bit surprised, maybe because of the pandemic and whatever else, but maybe in 8-9 months' time that will change. Both of those clubs will be sold. But for now, they've got to be happy because they've started well. They stuck behind Grant McCann, and rightly so. He's got good, form in League One, what he did with Doncaster. And obviously, we created him at our place, and I gave him his first gig as assistant coach and manager, hardened him up by firing him. And now he's done phenomenal. I think they've won 5-6 of their first games, the top of the league. Or they're up there with Lincoln. And they've got a squad that's probably ready-made and purpose-fit for League One. So for Hull fans, it will make a difference to what happened last year where they didn't win for 15, 16 games. Now they're seeing winning football. So what I'd say is, look, Hull always pay their bills. And I know that doesn't make an owner popular. And some fans just want to hammer ownership all the time. But there's a lot to be said for an owner that pays the bills.
Frankly, right now, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And look, his son had a pop at me, I think, on YouTube a few months ago over at Marcus Madison and other stuff. I'm not going to get drawn into that. People like to come and have a go at me at times. Fuck them.
You put yourself out there.
Yeah, I put myself out there, and people are brave enough behind a video to have a go. That's fine. We'll see when I'm face to face if they do the same. I highly doubt it. But I would say that Junior is obviously doing an okay job running it for his dad. And, I put them down as promotion favourites to win the league. And I think they'll probably win the league by 10, 15 points. I think you're fine.
Well, I got a question from Tom Clark. And Tom is a Irish posh supporter in Kildare. Tom wants to know, do you keep an eye on the Republic of Ireland international teams and any thoughts on the setup there?
Yes. Really disappointed with the results so far. We're probably going to miss another championship to qualify for. I know they got to give Kenny time to, the manager, the new manager they've got in place, who did phenomenal in the League of Ireland with all the league titles. So there's a change of the guard there. Mick McCarthy left. It's going to take a couple of years. We are Purdue. We've got some really, really good players. I'd like to see us do better, but I know also the FAI don't have a lot of money. and they had like financial issues and whatever the last couple of years. I always watch Irish matches. And even though I don't know a lot about the Irish leagues, I'm a Shamrock Rovers fan. I've always said if they weren't fan-owned or whatever, I'd buy them.
Yeah.
And they're top of the league by 10 points at the moment in Ireland. So go on the Rovers. But I've always supported them. I used to live in Milltown in Donnybrook, which was near Milltown, their old original stadium before they got relocated. And Dundalk just qualified, I believe. Was it Dundalk for the Europa League group stages? They've just made €4 million.
Wow.
Which is an absolute romantic story. That's a Cinderella story. Yeah, Dundalk are really well funded. They're run by a really wealthy guy. They've dominated Irish football for a few years. The Irish manager came from there. And, they're a bloody good team. So, the standard in Ireland's picking up, to be fair.
Well, I'm going to just close today with a business question. And
we welcome business questions all the time.
Absolutely. And this one is, you invest in businesses outside of football. We've talked about that on the pod before. When you're doing that, what are you looking for? How are you, what helps you make your mind up on a particular decision? What makes an opportunity an interesting proposition for you? Is it founder, the industry, the type of the product or service? Like, what piques your interest?
My interest is it something different? Mm-hmm. Is it someone just trying to recreate the wheel? Is it the same old thing? I look at tech stuff because I've always been savvy to a bit of tech. Nowadays, I look at eco stuff. Even a pharmaceutical thing nowadays. Do you know what I mean? I even already invested in like cannabis oil last year.
Right.
What do I look for? I look for obviously the people behind it. Are they credible? Are they into it? Do they have love and passion for it? Have they put their own money into it? Mm-hmm. Is their presentation pack like detailed? When I ask them questions, do they answer quickly? I'll give you an example. I had a person to do it. He'd come up with something to do with holidays. It was a travel app. And I love the idea. And I went back with 10 questions and he took 4 days to answer. Mm-hmm. And straight away I was out. Like Dragon's Den, I was out because you're asking me to put 150 grand into the business and it's taking you 4 days to respond to the email. I can't work with someone like that. Because if they're going to do that when they're asking for my money, what happens when they get my money? So I've said this before, I can be quite brutal with stuff like that. Mm-hmm. If you're asking me to invest in you, fuck me, you need to be working day and night to get my money. So there's just a mixture of things and people ask all the time. So if you've got an idea, email them to me, realdarragh@MacAnthony@gmail.com or send them through to the podcast. Make sure you get to the point. Make sure the presentation is slick. Make sure it's not a 20-page presentation because you lose me by page 5.
Mm-hmm. So there you go, 5 pages. No more than 5 pages.
Bottom lines in there, what you want, what you're going to do with my money, what you're offering equity-wise. Don't be stupid and ask me for 200 grand and offer me 5%. Plus valuing your company at millions when you haven't even got out a starting gate. So be realistic. I understand everyone thinks they've got the next big thing. Get real, look in the mirror. And most importantly, if I do email you back, fucking answer me. That's the least you can do, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a competitive game out there. I mean, you get that, you have the deal flow. So, you got to stand out.
Absolutely. And I did another investment last week. I was 30 grand in something. So I'm always investing, but it's got to be right. And you got to be quick. And if I get a whiff that somebody is like not into it and not answering and not responding, I'm out. I'll move on quickly.
Now, how do you keep track of everything that you have invested in from a governance or oversight perspective and supporting those businesses? Because I'm sure for so many of those businesses, it's not just the money. It's getting, the benefit of your guidance.
I'm a detail freak. So what I tend to do about Dropbox, I save everything in Dropbox. So you asked me for a document that we did 2 months ago, it will be in Dropbox. Mm-hmm. Everything is there. So I keep track of everything. I ask for updates every 2 weeks from people to the businesses. I want a summary of where we are, what's going on. I don't want to be involved in all the nitty gritty, fucking night and day shit, because that's not what I've invested for. Yeah. If I wanted to, I'd do it myself then. I don't want to sound arrogant by that. I've got a football club to run. I've got other stuff going on. The pandemic has unfortunately given opportunity for lots of stuff coming up over the next year. I missed out in 2009, 2010 when I lost my bollocks myself and I was too busy having a mental crisis and a financial crisis, so I couldn't invest. Yep. I'm not going to miss out if there is stuff that comes up now. So I'm really it's one of the reasons I was in Dubai. I was there on business. I met some big hitters. I had an unbelievable business trip and there's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing out there with investors. Exciting. Some of it's sports, some of it's sports related. And it was really interesting going back to being the pitcher because I haven't pitched for a while. Yeah. So here I am in front of big funds, big money, family offices, sheikhs, government people from different places of the Emirates. And I'm the one basically presenting. And each time I met someone, my presentation got better and better. and having to answer questions. It was quite exhilarating actually, because I've done all right for myself in life. I haven't usually needed to ask for people for anything, but I found it. Yeah, it was really exhilarating. It was refreshing. And the one thing I did with all of them, and this is a point for people to learn out there, the minute I finished, within an hour, I'd sent a message straight away saying, "Look, thank you very much for your time. It was a great meeting. To meet you, meet your sons, meet whatever, whether something comes out or not. Thank you very much for your time. All the best."
Yeah.
And it's just a little thing. I always finish with "take care," or "God bless," or whatever else. And those little things go a long way. You wouldn't believe it. And they were when I used to sell, people always think I'm this aggressive guy and I must have just dominated and been an aggressive sales guy. I was what you would call a chameleon. The reason I was and when I say this, I mean this, I was the world's best real estate salesman. Nobody could sell real estate like me personally, one-on-one. Nobody even came close to touching me. And the reason being is I was a chameleon. And if people don't know what a chameleon is, go look it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to leave that as a task then for everybody as we wrap up today. I've got a lot more business questions that I could jump in on, but I know that we're coming up on the hour plus mark this week, so we'll save those for another pod. I want to thank everybody, as always, for listening in to us. And Darragh, thank you for your time. Hopefully that we made it through the jet lag and you haven't crashed and I haven't crashed yet, so we made it.
10 coffees in. I'm ready to go. So listen, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the support. Couldn't do the podcast without you. Last 3-4 episodes have been through the roof. And again, that's what we do it for. And we do it for a bit of crack. And we really enjoy it. And again, we'll say it again, stay safe out there. It's a different world we're living in. We want the old normal back. Fuck the new normal.
All right. Well, we'll be back again. If at least there's one thing consistent right now is every Wednesday we're going to drop another pod. So we'll be here again next week. Take care, everybody. Guys.